Kirby Air Riders is a game where you race against others using a wide variety of different vehicles. Each of these vehicles can be fully customized and then either used for yourself or, more importantly, sold on a community-driven marketplace. This is basically how it works. On the main page, you're greeted with a list of many different player-created designs. If we take a closer look, we can clearly see how many players have purchased a specific design and how much that design costs. If we now look at all of the designs we're seeing right now and then begin to compare those two numbers, it's clear that more often than not, these two variables directly correlate, meaning designs with more purchases will also be more expensive. On our current list, the prices vary greatly, and that's because the list is actually sorted by new. To find the machines we're interested in today, we need to sort them by popularity. This new list is based on recent purchase activity within the market. Here we're able to find designs that the community agrees are of high quality. These include ones mimicking Nintendo hardware consoles, a huge variety of different Pokemon designs, and Hatsune Miku. As you can see, these designs are much more expensive. And this is actually because the two variables we looked at earlier have inflated the market. The issue is that even though the market was designed so that the prices would drop when no one purchased them, many of the popular designs remain popular. So in the end, those prices never go down. And it's basically causing players to use almost all of their funds on a singular design if they want to use it, so they can't actually buy anything else with it. Because the funds we're actually looking at are kind of part of this entire problem. The in-game currency in Kirby Air Riders is called miles. Surprisingly enough, the machines listed on the market by other players don't actually give them any profits. According to the game's director, the real reward is simply how fun it is to see the price go up and down. So instead, to actually earn miles, you need to actively be playing the game. There are different modes in Kirby Air Riders. These include the Air Ride and Top Ride mode, which is basically your standard racing mode and a top-down version of it. Then there's also City Trial, where you roam a large city, grab a bunch of power-ups, and compete in a stadium event later. And finally, then there's the Roadtrip mode, which is basically a story mode for this game. All of these modes vary slightly in the way you earn miles, but one thing that is shared between them and directly influences how many miles you earn is the length and distance you travel. But as that is the case, it usually takes hours to save enough miles for even a single popular design. And the director probably knew about this, which is why more efficient methods also exist. One of these is known as checklist objectives. It's basically this game's version of in-game achievements you can complete by meeting specific criteria, such as riding a track a certain distance, etc. However, while you can get a large amount of miles through this, as with many achievements in other games, the more you complete them, the fewer there are left to finish. So if you think about it in a literal sense, it puts players in a scenario where they end up finding a popular design they like, notice how expensive it is, and then naturally also view it as higher quality, and with that information are willing to spend all of their hard-earned funds on a single design. But then when a new machine they like appears on the market, they'll already have completed most, if not all of these objectives, and thus cannot get many more miles through them. Which brings us to another efficient method of getting miles: Kirby Air Riders Online mode. Compared to the modes we saw earlier, when you compete with others online, you actually get a lot more currency than you would playing those. While this does encourage online play, it also creates a disconnect between players new to the game and more experienced ones. So in the end, many must rely on less efficient mile collecting methods, which take up much more time to complete. Time which in relation to high quality designs could mean that even once players have enough miles, that machine might have already gone up in price. Also, if you're enjoying this video so far and want to see more like this, consider leaving a like and subscribing. It would really mean a lot. So if high quality designs are so expensive, why don't players simply make their own? In short, you're able to alter a machine's base color and pattern, add decals as well as accessories to it, and even change its trail and engine sounds. While this all sounds like the game offers players many customization options, it also restricts each machine to only 20 decals. And this isn't an uncommon feature for a game to have, as giving players an unlimited amount of assets to add to their design can cause severe technical problems related to the game's memory and performance. However, compared to other creation-oriented titles available on the Nintendo Switch 1, Kirby Air Riders imposes notably stricter constraints, despite being developed specifically for the more capable Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. Take Miitopia for example. The game centers on players designing Miis that fill various narrative roles. Its original release on Nintendo 3DS supported only basic customization, but when the title was later ported to the Nintendo Switch, it introduced a significantly more robust Mii creator. And unlike the 20 decal limit in Kirby Air Riders, Miitopia gives players a lot more room to work with, by setting its own limit to 100. Then there's also the issue that every part a player applies to a machine in Kirby Air Riders costs individual miles. In contrast, Miitopia once again provides a more user-friendly approach, by granting players full access to all parts from the start. But there's actually another similar system made by the same developer, where we can find an even stranger takeaway: the stage creator in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Both games do cap you at a total of 100 designs, but in Kirby Air Riders, that limit is shared across all 28 different machines. So if you split it evenly, each machine only gets about 4 to 5 safe designs. Meanwhile, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate doesn't have different stage categories dividing that limit. So in the end, we're left with a game that was once again built for the Nintendo Switch 1 and ultimately ends up offering way more freedom than Kirby Air Riders machine editor. But that doesn't mean that Kirby Air Riders editor is any less complex. On the contrary, certain machines such as the Transform Star are arguably more difficult to customize. What's challenging about this one in particular is that it switches between two different forms, while the player is only allowed to customize one model. As a result, any design must accommodate the form the player cannot actually edit. Now, despite that difficulty, when the editing is done right, players can create highly detailed designs. However, at the same time, the very difficulty involved with these more complex machines results in most players sticking to simpler ones instead, to the point that when we take another look at the machine market, we'll find its listings primarily dominated by one of the easiest to design machines, the Warp Star. Take a look at these two designs in particular. Because they're both made by Sakura Miko, a VTuber who once designed them in a livestream, many players ended up buying these machines and driving up their popularity. Since the marketplace ultimately incentivizes popularity, because as noted earlier, players do not earn any miles from their own machines, players noticing this spike in popularity began copying them. And as this behavior isn't only limited to our example, but rather occurs to any popular design, the marketplace often remains in a cycle where it is saturated with cheaper, near-identical knockoffs. Of course, players who want to support the original creator probably won't be as interested in buying cheaper alternatives, but because the popular designs themselves are too expensive for the casual players, the most likely outcome is that over time, no one ends up buying anything at all. And as players naturally move on from the game, the marketplace will only see a further drop in activity. Eventually, this could go so far that almost everyone just sticks to making their own designs instead of actually engaging with the system. In turn, the recognition that should go to the original creator is almost entirely diluted. And the very creativity the marketplace's price-raising mechanics were intended to encourage is effectively undermined. If you'd like me to cover other topics such as this one, be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more videos in this style, consider leaving a like and subscribing, it really does mean a lot.